We say things like, maybe later, perhaps another time, or I'll see you tomorrow. But for some of us, there won't be a tomorrow. Listen as your worst nightmares come to life. These nightmares have become someone's reality. My name is Justin Crowley, and this is The Murder Project. Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 12 of The Murder Project. This is the episode debrief for the Missy Bevers Murder. For those of you that are new to The Murder Project, the debrief is an episode where I sit down with my good friend and former police officer, Mike Smith, to discuss these cases further. In the debrief, we discuss the cases from both sides of the aisles, theories that we might have, and anything we think might need a second look. The debrief will be an unscripted and off-the-cuff commentary about the cases that we are currently covering. In this case, Missy Bevers. The hope for the debrief is to break the case down further, but in a relaxed environment with the true crime we love, but also some laughter. So let's get the episode started. My main man, Mike Smith, how are we doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm ready to get started, but I'm just dying of allergies. So if anybody is like, why does he sound so weird? Or why is he making a bunch of extra mouth noises? It's because my nasal passages have refused to cooperate today.
Yep.
And I would like to also mention it's a startling amount of allergy-based medication I've taken this week, and I am still dealing with it.
Yeah, I got hit last Saturday, and I was in a position where I could barely speak.
Right.
My voice was unrecognizable. I mean, I think anybody who's listened to a couple of the other Murder Project episodes will realize that both of us are in a bit of...
Yeah, I definitely have some congestion going on. Yeah, so...
Yeah. It's not the Rona.
No, it's not the Rona. No, if you hear me distance myself when you hear the sound of like a walrus gurgling in the background, that's just me blowing my nose. So I really hope that you guys don't have to hear that. But
yeah, I'll edit that out.
Thank you.
But there's definitely going to be a lot of, hopefully not a lot of, but we're definitely going to be clearing the throat and doing a lot of different things like that. And so, all right, well, I know that this week has been especially hard for both of us because of that. And then I know that Friday and Saturday were just terrible mowing days for me. We got the rain yesterday and it rained again today, and this rain. But so Friday I was out and about. I was doing a little mowing, doing a little weed eating.
Mm-hmm. Life of a mowing man. Yeah.
And I was clearing out these weeds that were in this back alley. And so I couldn't really see them, but as I'm just going through there with my weed eater, I hit this patch of stickers, and they explode out of the weed eater head like a grenade. They stick me all in my forearm and all in my. It was like I hit it, and it's like, and I was like, oh god, and
like a bunch of goat heads.
Yeah, just stuck all in my forearm and in my chest. And then, not long after that, I'm in a lady's backyard mowing, and I go to duck to go under this tree, and a little branch from the tree goes all the way up my right nostril and touches my brain, Mike. It touched my brain. I was in this lady's backyard just screaming and talking to Jesus in her backyard because, it felt like it was deep inside me.
You want to know? It sounds like it was in there. It probably knocked a few childhood memories loose. You want to know something funny? If you talk to God, you're considered religious, but if God talks to you, you're considered psychotic.
Well, I'm glad I'm on the right side of that.
There you go, man. Yeah. And if you had a branch go up and touch you on the inside of your brainal cavity, you're gonna be talking to Jesus.
It was deep.
Yeah,
it was deep in there. I mean, I was walking full speed with a mower, and it just crammed right up in there.
I don't miss that.
Oh God, no! Mike used to help me back in the day, and you are definitely smart to have removed yourself from
it's
that
really
misery.
Just because I couldn't fit it in my schedule, but
no, I know
it's past my bedtime.
I know. I'm just sad. All right, let's get on. Let's get on with the podcast. We have
lots to talk about.
Lot to talk about in this one, and I think that normally we kind of do a rundown, like a point by point bulletin, but I feel like there is so much going on that we're going to start in that direction. Hopefully you listened to the episode before this, so you have all the backstory. So in case we don't touch on something, you'll still know exactly where we're at in the storyline, because I feel like there is a lot of things in here where we could really do a deep dive and spend a lot of time in. So if you haven't listened to the other episode, pause right now and go back and listen. I think we'll just pick up where the crime scene and everything starts at, in the church. We have the guy who shows up, and I'm assuming it's a guy. We've talked about this off air, but we thought that it's more than likely a guy.
Yeah, just by the shape that his vest is held to the body, by the vest is held to the body, and the way they kind of lope around and the way they stand, I feel, in my opinion, it's a dude.
Yeah, I do too.
And it just, I tried to be like, maybe it's a female, but I just can't. Just the way the vest holds the chest.
I tried to walk through that several different scenarios where I tried to figure out a way that I could make it a woman, and in my head, I can't.
Yeah.
So at 4:20 is whenever Missy shows up to the church. Surveillance footage puts this person entering the church around 3:50. So he's got about a 30-minute head start before Missy gets there.
Yeah, so right off the bat, I want to say this is just way too coincidental to me.
Yeah.
Way too coincidental that it's this church at that time. Let's look at it. Let's role play through an entirely different scenario. Say this person in this tactical gear.
Yeah. Is it full SWAT gear?
Yeah, full SWAT gear.
Wrong.
Yeah, look like black pants, black boots,
yeah,
and a vest that probably cost $30-$40 at a military surplus with a couple of stitched like police Velcro tabs you can put on there. I know you can get those because I have some.
Yeah, and you can order them online. There was an interview with a gentleman that owned a tactical supply store, and he said that if he sold any items like that, he required the person show them a law enforcement ID that matches the credentials that match what he or she is buying. But that does not mean that this person got that there, and that doesn't mean this person didn't get it offline, because you can literally get them anywhere.
That's right, yeah. And the only thing you're getting differently is when you buy it online from like a third party, and I say that meaning like somebody that does this as just a way to make money and not as a profession, is your cost, and you don't have the name brand attached to it. So to finish this scenario, he shows up dressed up like that to what? Just to ravage the church? Because the questions I have is this burglary used as a cover-up?
Yeah.
Because if it is, that makes a lot of sense, because nothing is taken.
Because what would the point be? What's the point of dressing up in a police-like uniform, which also makes me believe that this person probably wasn't in law enforcement because of the attire that they used and the helmet with the shield, the riot helmet. It's all kind of weird to me why they dressed up like that. And then if you are dressing up like that to go in and commit vandalism, how does that all tie together?
And the more that you think about it like that, the less it's going to make sense, because it doesn't. This isn't I don't believe this is a crime of opportunity. I don't believe that some schmo dressed up in some cool guy gear and showed up at this church
to knock some windows out,
to knock some glass out and bebop around before running into Missy Bevers. I don't think that at all. It's too coincidental.
Mm-hmm. And then I also wanted to point out, in the episode before this, I mentioned that it looked like some sort of impact vest. And the reason I said that is because that's kind of typically what we used inside the jail. But really, like Mike pointed out, if this is like a surplus supply vest or something of that nature, it's not even going to be that. It's just literally going to be the material that looks like a vest. Like you made a point about having a hunting vest that you use that someone could say, this looks like a tactical vest.
Yeah, it's just for shooting doves.
Yeah.
It's got big pockets for shotgun shells.
And then you get you a $10 Velcro reflective police badging, and not even badging, like the little like placard deal, but you slap it on there and then Bingo, you're ready to go. And then, go ahead.
So just these 3 points, like the burglary is a cover-up, if it is, it's pretty coincidental. And could this be a crime of opportunity? And I think absolutely no.
Nope.
I think that person was there for a reason. That doesn't mean we know who that person is, because overall, I can say with 100% surety that the lack of available evidence and the transparency of what evidence is available from the law enforcement agencies is the most frustrating thing about what we have going on here today.
Yeah. And then the crime of opportunity could be like a twofold. Is it a crime of opportunity for the burglary, or does it end up being a crime of opportunity as the murder?
Right.
And you can't get me to, I don't think that you can get me to where either are plausible for me.
Mm-mm.
He went in there with the intention of killing her. And the weird thing is like I said, he moves around kind of aimlessly in the building. So at some points he kind of may look like he knows where he's going. Some points he doesn't. I mean, we can't tell because it's a video. It's just a video of a guy walking around a building. But if he was familiar with the building and everything, that would maybe make sense as to how he found his way over to Missy and how either her death was not captured on camera or it was not given to the public as, you know, to say that this is on camera, this is how it happened.
Now, did you see any of the top-down, like, satellite views of this location?
I saw some pictures of the outside. It looks like it was right off of a highway.
Yeah, I did see that as well.
Yeah.
But I guess what I'd like to know, and I wish somebody would say something, you know, this case is a couple years old. I feel like these details could really help, you know, all of us.
Yeah, if you haven't figured it out now, why don't you go ahead and just let some folks help?
Yeah.
You know, there's people like us and like a lot of people out there that love getting information like that and digging into it and just saying, okay, let's look at it. I'm not saying that we're going to solve any crimes, but at least we could say, okay, maybe this might point us in the right direction.
I can comfortably say that crazier things have happened in the world of true crime, but we're implying with what we do know about this case that Missy Bevers showed up, got out of her car, and went into that church believing that no one else was there, but he had already been there for 30 minutes.
Yep.
So she didn't see another car when she pulled up. Can we safely assume that? I'm thinking yes.
Yeah.
Because wouldn't she think she'd be the only person there? Do they ever come out and say that?
Yeah, not that I have ever heard. And
at 4:20 in the morning,
who would you think would be there? No one gets to class that early.
Right. So, you know, if he had already been there for a half hour, where did he park?
Yeah.
My assumption and speculation is all that I'm doing here is that he parked either where far enough away that he could walk.
Close access.
Right. Or around the side of the building. But that would imply he knew where she was going to park.
Yeah. And then it would also imply that he knew either the outside cameras weren't working, so it wouldn't capture him entering the building or where his vehicle was at or how he specifically got in the building. And then it would also imply that he knew that the room that he was going to be in where she was going to be murdered didn't have audio or visual. And then that's where we get to this crazy case, because to me, this feels like we're trying to put a puzzle together that does not have a photo on it, does not have a picture on the puzzle, and we're missing half the pieces.
It does feel like that, and I really wish that what more was available would be explained so that at least people would have more answers, because overall, there really aren't any, and it leads me to think we often, in true crime, talk about the perfect crime.
Yeah.
Did one already happen?
Did we just see one?
Because there isn't enough evidence there aren't enough leads.
Nope.
There aren't enough evidence. He didn't leave any of the murder weapons behind.
Yep. Every single suspect that's looked at goes into this area, and it starts to just go in the same circle, out of the drain, down the drain.
Yep.
Over. Everything's gone.
Yep.
So Missy ends up into this large classroom. And I'm assuming it's an area large enough to hold maybe 10 or 15 people that are going to be working out. So classroom size, she's trying to get everything set up. And then when the first person comes in and sees her laying dead on the floor, she has been stabbed in the chest multiple times and she's been bashed over the head with a blunt force object.
What time was that?
So the 911 call came out at 5:06, and the first person that arrived in the building was right at 5.
Okay, so she was there for 42 minutes. I'm sorry, 40 minutes.
Yeah.
4:20 to 5 a.m. with nobody else there except for the person who perpetrated the offense.
Yeah, and then there was some video footage somewhere that shows a car leaving around 4:30. That's why I said in the other episode, did it give, would 10 minutes be enough time to commit a crime like this? I think yes.
Oh yeah.
But it could have been not 10 minutes. It could have been 20 minutes. That person could have been wandering around in the place this whole time while she was in there. I mean, a big enough church if you're on one end and she's in the other. And
now this car that was seen leaving, is it the silver car that they talk about later?
I'm not sure.
That's exactly what I was hoping you'd say, because isn't that something we should know?
Yes.
Like, how about a bolo?
Yeah.
Or anything, because I feel like that's really important. Now, you covered it well enough in the first part of in the first episode of this case. I mean, word's going to get around in a small town.
Yeah.
And they do. Randy and his limp, the bloody shirt, that all these, like, what they think is pretty damning evidence, but literally goes nowhere.
Does nothing. Yeah. And even when she's found, one of the things that we talk about is what's the motive for the murder? What could have possibly been the reason why somebody wanted to kill Missy? And the thing that I thought was interesting is there's no talk about sexual assault for or against. And I think that would help clear up a lot of different information that we have. Was it, that's a very terrible thing.
Yes.
But it would be pertinent if we knew either she was or was not. Because then you could say, okay, well, that points us in a different direction. That says, okay, this person went in with the motive of committing sexual assault and the murder was the collateral damage. And also, was it the fact that this person was going to commit a burglary and Missy was the collateral damage on that end as well, but then nothing was taken.
Right.
There's nothing. So so that's where I kind of was thinking, like, if this was a setup scenario where somebody said, okay, I want you to go in, Missy's going to be in this area, you're going to kill her, and make it look like a burglary, go around and do some stuff, whatever you need to do, and then get out. But the problem is, if that's the case, the person didn't steal anything. They just committed the murder. And we already know for a fact that it wasn't her husband and it wasn't her father-in-law because they were out of town.
Yes, they were. And those alibis turned out to be credible for both of them.
Yeah.
So we do know that the Beavers' marriage was in trouble to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Not just the money issues, which I'm glad you brought up. That's very common.
Yeah.
That's like saying that water is wet.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever known anybody in a marriage at some point that didn't have some type of financial frustration. Is that a huge stressor? Of course it is.
Yep.
But also pretty common.
Pretty common. And then
But infidelity?
Yeah.
Also shockingly common, sadly. Yeah. But that's definitely something I could see getting fired up about. But we never get to know, at least as far as I'm aware of, how deep that rabbit hole goes.
Yeah.
And by that I mean how many times, what their names are, where she was meeting these people, because she's a very fit, attractive woman who looked like she had a great personality. It's not like I know her. Yeah. I'm just saying that type of person generally attracts people.
Yeah. And then you take into account the fitness, right? People are getting their lives together. They're getting in shape. They're losing weight. They're getting new attention that's brought to them. Hey, you're looking good. Slimming down. People start kind of having some attractions towards each other, and so you never know. And that is something that I wanted to bring up in this one, because I tried to find if there was any sort of insurance policy on Missy that might help us get more towards a motive for Brandon. Because for Brandon, I think you look at him and you say, okay, there's the issues of infidelity, you have the money issues, and then she turns up dead. But I was not able to find out if there was any sort of insurance policy on her, or, if anything was paid out after her death. I don't know. But I do know that because one of the other kind of kinks in the chain is that Missy was very active on social media, which is very common for people that have businesses and are trying to get there. I mean, we post a lot of stuff on our social media pages. We don't obviously give our locations, but for her being a Camp Gladiator instructor, she would have to give that location out. She's trying to recruit people into her business.
Bring them in,
Yeah, so that she can not only help them meet their fitness goals, but also get a little money to go with it. And so she posted on her Facebook page the night before she was murdered, hey, be at the church. We'll be there at 5:30. Come rain or shine. If it is raining, we'll be indoors.
Yeah.
So someone would have known, anybody would have known that she would have been in there. So then now we fall back to, is this guy just meandering around the church and finds a pretty blonde in the classroom and kills her? Or does this person specifically know that she's going to be there?
Right, because I thought about it, and well, who wouldn't think about it after this, getting to know this case? But so is she in there, and what is she doing? If she's just setting up, is she playing music? Is she getting motivated? Or is she just in there like sipping her coffee, trying to get her day started?
Yeah, getting everything
Wouldn't
set
she
up.
hear this guy coming?
Yeah.
I mean, churches are pretty echoey.
Yeah.
Sound carries in big open hallways and mostly empty rooms with high ceilings.
Yeah, you would think the acoustics would bring out the door slamming and the glass shattering.
Exactly. So are we to assume only that all that happened before she got there and that then he approached?
He's hiding in wait?
Maybe he did, yeah, because I don't think, and if there is any video footage of it, we don't know about it. But the actual murder itself, I don't think was caught on film, and if it is, we don't know.
Yep.
But would she not have heard him coming? Would she not have seen them coming? Was she was in there jamming out, trying to get motivated? That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. But still, she's in a lit room. He's darkly clad. He comes in. Wouldn't she run? I would.
Yeah.
I consider myself a pretty tough guy when it comes to like normal things like that, like a startle response. I'm going to run from a guy like that at 4:20, whatever in the morning.
Yeah. And even if he is dressed this way, I know for us, that would be very suspicious. Of course, we were in the line of work, but to anybody else, I would say that if there's just a random dude that shows up in a room that you're at a church or in a store, especially 4:20 in the morning, and he's dressed in riot gear and he's like, hey, police, come here. I'm not going to.
No.
I'm going to be like, hold up.
Right.
I need to see, because a lot of people don't know, but even in situations of, in the jail, obviously, we did not have to show our credentials to anybody because you're in the jail and these are inmates. But I know that when I went to patrol and I knew a lot of guys that were on our SWAT team and our hard entry and tactical team, a lot of people may not know this, but even when these guys are in their gear, kitted up, or however you want to say it, they still have to display a badge.
That's right.
So they either have it clipped on their belt, or they're wearing one of those necklaces, or they have something for this specific reason.
Right.
Just because they're dressed like this, you need to know that they're real cops. So if this guy would have been like, "Excuse me," and I see no badge, I'm out.
Yeah.
Or I would have asked, and if he doesn't show you anything, you need to get away.
Yeah, that really makes me wonder, did something like that happen? Did he sneak up on her? Or did he confront her?
Yeah, police, we got a situation. I need you to come here.
Right, and he tried to like pull, rank on her or something, and
she
was
runs
like,
over there
"What?"
and he just whacks her with a hammer.
Exactly, because the wounds she has multiple stabs, punctures, and stabs to her chest, and then of course the bludgeon to the head.
Yep.
Which obviously we can assume that that's the hammer and the screwdriver, respectively.
Yep. And you brought up a good point while we were talking. Which one happened first?
That's what I'm getting at now. The way I see it going on in my head as I overthink this, like most of us do, does he sneak up on her? If so, bonk.
Yep. Sneaks up, whacks her in the head.
God rest her. Or he confronts her, she runs, and then he chases her down and hits her and then stabs her.
Or once she gets close to him, she's facing him, boom, he stabs her. Because I feel like like we talked about earlier, I feel like there's a lot of situations, no matter how this scenario is played out, except for one, that would be the sneak up and bonk on the head, that she could have ran.
Yeah.
She, that as physically fit as she was, as capable as she would have not taken this just lying down and been like, well, guess he got me. Now I'm done.
It doesn't appear, or at least we're not privy to any information that she fought back in any capacity.
Yeah.
So,
and then the riot helmet obviously would help him as far as protecting his face, but I feel like there would have been a scenario because this guy, if she would have got one clean hit or a impact that we were like what we would refer to as a impact that creates distance, she could have ran. Because for all accounts, this guy is a 5'2" to 5'8" frumpy dude in SWAT gear, and he's like milling about, and it doesn't even look like he can barely stand on his own 2 feet.
Yeah,
you're gonna tell me that he's gonna walk into a room and find this woman who's physically fit and just somehow overtake her?
Yeah, or yeah, I don't, judging by the very little bit of footage we did see of this guy bebopping around, he looks like he doesn't do a lot of running or moving around for a living, in my opinion. Just by the way he walks.
He busts a chill most of the time.
His posture looks like he spends a lot of time sitting.
Yeah.
Just by the way he walks, his toes pointed outward, just kind of like flopping as he steps around like a duck walk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Physical activity is not in this man's portfolio.
No, that's definitely the impression that I get. And so I don't see a scenario where he can chase her down, where she wouldn't be able to get away just by being fleet of foot, because he doesn't look like he's fleet of foot to me.
No, unless it was an act.
Right.
Ooh, what if he was acting like he was? No, you can't hide the gut. But I will tell you that say he buys some boots that are 2 sizes too small, 2 sizes too big. And he's got all this stuff, and he's trying to put off this persona of something else.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'm still not going to get there. I think what we see is what we get.
No, exactly.
What we're talking about right now is probably actually the truth.
That would lead me to believe that he snuck up on her, or they knew each other.
Yeah.
And so he was like, "Hey, what's going on?" And she's like, "Huh? Wow, you're dressed very strangely."
Yeah.
And he goes to attack her, and she tries to run, and then of course what happens.
Yeah.
Or something like that, because
he says, "Hey, can I talk to you real quick?" And she's like, "Yeah," because in my opinion, I think that maybe the initial like hit or two, because I don't know how many times she was struck in the head.
Right. Weirdly, we don't know that either.
Yeah, but if it was a single strike and then she died from the stab wounds, then we say, okay, that now we know that he probably either she knew him, like you just said, she walks up to him, he whacks her on the head, or he sneaks up behind her and whacks her on the head and then stabs her for good measure. But another thing that I thought was interesting is that he used the screwdriver to stab her. There's no other there's no firearms, there's no knives. And this to me makes it kind of feel personal, because if you stab somebody with a screwdriver, it's not going to be a clean insert like with a knife. You're literally going to be punching holes in someone.
Oh yeah.
With a screwdriver, they would have to be big enough to jimmy open a door or whatever he brought it for.
Right.
We're talking about a thick, squared screwdriver, probably a flathead if I was just guessing off the top of my head. And you're going to have to you're going to puncture this person with this long screwdriver. It feels kind of personal. That doesn't mean that it was, because if we go back to the burglary, which turned into the murder, then maybe he was just trying to tie up any loose ends. But it definitely feels to me like it's got a personal flair to it.
Yeah, I just would like to say that I'm thinking, even if this was some type of weird coincidence where some jackwagon wanted to go out and vandalize a church in police gear because to feel cool, he wouldn't go ahead and jump right to murder, or would he?
Yeah.
I'm going to say that's a big jump.
What's the point of the disguise if you're just going to end up killing the person that was? I mean, he could have walked through the door, saw Missy setting up, and went like, "Oh crap," and then left.
Yeah, because I'm sure she'd have been just as startled to see that person.
Yeah. Or he could have just said, like, she walked in the door and he's standing there and he's like, "Hey, ma'am, if you could go wait in your car," or "Hey, could you?" And he could have just taken off.
Yeah, but he
snuck into the church. Why couldn't he have snuck out?
Exactly. So that's why, of what little we do know, that leads me to believe that that person went there to do this act.
Okay, so let's talk about let's talk about the people, and one of the things I wanted to get into was really breaking down who and what. So let's start with Brandon, her husband. We talked about already the financial issues. We've talked about the infidelity.
Those are hard pills to swallow.
Yeah, Brandon obviously has a motive to have his wife murdered. Does that mean that he did? Absolutely not, because like Mike just said, infidelity and financial issues in marriages are pretty common.
Yeah, sadly.
It doesn't escalate to murder. If it did, there would just be bodies everywhere.
Yeah, there would be.
And so he's also conveniently in another state.
With multiple witnesses to corroborate.
Exactly. So, I mean, his alibi is airtight. He's in Mississippi, and he's on a fishing trip, I think. It was either fishing or hunting trip, And he's with several people. They all say he was there. And that door, as far as him committing the murder, is automatically closed. And from what I understand, they can't even bring in, and this is where I get to the point was, did he hire somebody? And we're talking about a smaller area. So this would have been someone that he knew, and this would have been someone that he could have trusted to carry out the execution of his wife. And in a small town, I'm from a small town, people talk a lot. There's a saying that, oh yeah, people know the things that I did before I even did them. Huh, yuck. Because it's really true. Everybody knows everything about everybody. Also, a lot of things that happen in a small town is there's usually a lot of bit of drinking going on. And so you're telling me that this guy knew somebody capable of murder and he never told a soul.
True. You know what they say? One person can keep a secret, but not two.
Not two.
That's right.
And so they immediately have to close the door on that. So then we bring in Randy. We bring in good old Randy.
Yeah, and unfortunately, there were a lot of armchair detectives that really thought they had him just because of his gait.
He's got a, and I don't like. Did you watch the video of Randy walking into the sheriff's office?
I did.
It's not what it really looks like to me is another out of shape man who just shuffling in a building.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like he has maybe a little limp, but to go from that straight to, we got him. Hey, it's like I can just see 10 people with their fingers pointed out over his head like, policeman.
And the bloody shirt,
here he is.
Just let it go. It ended up not being him.
Yeah.
Not to mention all of the law enforcement personnel that were saying, this is not it. It's not him. So, I mean, let it go.
Yeah.
It's not Randy.
They're like, we got the blood on the shirt. We got the limp. Boom. Done. Why isn't this man in prison? And they're like, well, the blood on the shirt
canine.
Actually turned out to be canine, so that's not it. And they're like, well, what about the limp? And they're like, well, a lot of different people walk different ways. And they're like, are you guys kidding me?
What do we pay you for?
Yeah, we got the guy right here, and you're just going to let him walk. But wait, there's more.
There is more.
Because Randy's in California.
Yeah. So after all of that, oh, wait, he wasn't even in there.
Yeah, they just grenaded the whole thing. And I from what I understand, they were still thinking that Randy was the guy. And like, no, he wasn't even in town, which I also think is an interesting point.
That is a little suspicious.
Father and son are both out of town at the same time in different areas with rock solid alibis. Very suspicious. Does it mean murder? Unfortunately, I don't think so, because neither one of them ever went to jail.
Right, because it also implies that they hired somebody to do this.
And if you're going off the Brandon and Randy scenario, then the only thing that you can get to is murder for hire.
That's right.
Or just a buddy doing a good thing, quote unquote, not a good thing. It was not a good thing.
Yeah, just trying to help a friend.
Yeah, and so I in my mind, that kind of, I mean, to me, that closes that door. I mean, I don't think, like I said, a lot of people pointed at Brandon and said, look at him. He shows no emotion. When he talks on camera, he's not crying. He's not doing anything. Well, folks, that's not for you to decide. You can't decide someone else's emotions, and you can't put your emotions on someone else.
I don't like to be the guy that falls into the cliche of saying that everybody grieves differently.
Yes. Go ahead.
But they do.
Yeah. Yeah.
They do. I can tell you.
I already said it.
I know you did, and you hear it a lot, especially when you're talking about. Oftentimes, that's what we'd like to gauge it on. But just from my limited experience, I've delivered death notifications in law enforcement to a victim's family.
Yeah,
and I've been met with the gamut. And the one that'll stick with me is she answered the door, and I told her husband was dead, and she said, "Okay."
Yeah, you're
and
like,
then,
well, I guess I'll leave now.
that was the shortest conversation I ever had with a human being.
Yeah, I had a similar incident where and like you said, I've gone to give a death notification where, the mother and the father, embrace each other and fall to the floor crying because, their child was just killed in a car accident or something like that. And then I also had one lady, and I knocked on her door and I said, "Hey, I just wanted to let you know that your son was killed in a car accident about an hour ago." And she was like, "Serves him right. I told him if he kept on messing around, he was going to get himself killed. And look what he did. Went off and got himself killed." Shut the door. And I was like, well, there's nothing nefarious about the
right.
incident. It was
You're not going to kick the door and be like, "Did you hear what I said?"
Yeah. Ma'am. Yeah. I'm
Yeah. No, you can't do anything. You just have to. I think I was more traumatized than that lady was in my experience. She was just like, "Okay."
I walked back to my car and I popped my clip-on tie off, threw it in the seat because I carried my tie with me. And yes, they were clip-on.
Yeah.
And were y'all's clip-on?
Yes.
Of course they were. And so I unclip my tie off and throw it in my passenger side seat. And I was like, that was very strange.
Yeah. So getting back to what we were talking about with Brandon, you don't get to judge that.
No.
Because you don't know what he did in the privacy of his home or in the arms of another loved one when he was like, "OMG, I can't believe she's dead." Or we can assume however you want to do that. But we don't get to judge how somebody grieves because some people grow up hard.
Yeah.
Where you don't show emotion.
No.
It's weakness.
I never saw my dad cry ever. Me and my dad were building a fence at our house one time, and I watched him smash his thumbnail off with a hammer. And he just looked at it and then kept going. And I thought, what was that? My dad did not show emotion about anything. And I would think that he might have a similar reaction to something like this. And that's kind of where I was like, man, you can't judge the dude. Because if I had to guess with this small town, what happened is that Brandon went back to his house after he figured it out. Some of his buddies called him and invited him over to his shop. And they got hammered and cried about it.
Yeah.
Or he cried about it later. But they probably went and got hammered, talked about the good old days, and he went home.
Like any good old Texan boy would do.
Yeah, and he went home and had his moment, and then he was probably done with it. So, all right, so we talked about Brandon. Randy, obviously his dad would have also had to hire someone, and I think
there's no evidence to any attachments there.
We would really be stretching it if we said that this is something that we can land on and say, let's go ahead and put this on the table because it's a good option. I don't even think it's a good option.
No, there isn't enough evidence to put any of them there, which leads us, of course, to the final person you'll learn about in being involved, at least as far as we know, because I can't stress that enough, people. We don't know anything.
Yeah, we don't even know what we don't know.
There aren't even crime scene photos released of, the victim.
Yeah.
Like how she was laying.
What was the physical evidence collected at the scene?
Yeah, I'm sorry if there is out there and I'm just that terrible that I didn't find it. I'm really sorry, guys, but I did not find it.
I didn't either.
So we get to Bobby Wayne Henry.
Yep. Oh, Bob Henry.
Yeah.
It's got the two first names.
Right. And
that's the guy.
And right out the gate.
Forget it. I'm done. That's the guy. He's got two first names. It's him.
Three first names.
Actually,
if you think about it, it's Bobby Wayne Henry.
Yeah, and I'm just joking. Anybody out there that's got two first names?
Yeah, easy, bud.
Yeah,
don't come at him.
Don't come at me, bro. Don't take.
We get to him, but we know right out the gate that he doesn't fit the size.
Yep.
I'd also like to point out that 5'2" to 5'8", that is 6 inches.
Yeah, that's also a pretty large stretch as far as what is what's the delta on that? What's the margin of error is what I meant to say. What's the margin of error?
It's 6 inches. Imagine you're in high school and your friend is 5'2" and you're 5'8", and you stand next to each other.
Yeah.
You can look down and see the top of his head.
Yeah.
So you know that you're taller than this. To me, when you read these articles and when you look into the research, they just casually say that. They're like, oh, the suspect is 5'2", between 5'2" and 5'8", and you're like, hold up, that's a shoe size.
Yeah.
Like that's quite a bit of difference. And also, how did you get to that?
Yeah. He's between.
Was there software used that tried to average this out? Because if that is the case, judging by the graininess of the footage that I have seen and the still photos that are also available, I'd like to say, in my opinion only, and not in any type of technical expertise do I have to the contrary, I feel like he could be, like that could be off.
Yeah.
6 inches is a big difference to me.
And that's why I said, let's not hold that bit of evidence to any kind of standard in my mind, because that not only is a 6-inch difference, but also whatever technology they use to get there. And then that automatically starts pointing you in directions that, even from what I'm looking at, the police aren't even using their own information. If
right.
They're like, all right, we got Bobby over here. And
wasn't he 6'1"?
Yeah, I was going to say, we got Bobby over here. And they're like, hey, Captain, he's 6'1". And he's like, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, so it does or doesn't?
Does or doesn't it? Right,
yeah.
Because you're putting out into all the news outlets, oh, this perpetrator is between 5'2" and 5'8", and so they're like, oh.
I'm like, I'm 5'11", so if they're like, hey, 5'2" to 5'8", and they're like, this guy's 5'11", they're like, close enough.
Yep, and you're like, well, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, so what are we doing?
Exactly.
But
very bizarre way to say that, and then to go target somebody. I say target because there's not enough evidence to say that he did it. Bobby Wayne Henry.
Yeah, and here's the thing that kind of throws me off with that. We saw the public in general latch on to Brandon. And then when that was kind of kicked to the side, we saw them latch on to Randy. That was kicked to the side. And then they bring up Bobby Henry and they say, okay, and this is why I put in there, is like, someone's like, hey, this guy used to be a cop. This guy might have some tactical gear, and this guy also has a limp. And then everybody who was so certain that it was one of these other two guys and had been wrong twice, now is like, boom, there's our guy. It kind of feels like dominoes are falling, and then there's like, it's not that guy. And they're like, it hits another domino, and they're like, there he is, there he is, there he is, there he is, there he is. And it just keeps on going. And, now does it sound like Bobby Henry is a good fellow, a good citizen? Doesn't sound like it.
It sure doesn't sound like it to me. I don't know the guy, but he sounds like a dirtbag.
Yeah, because, so I look back, and I think it was around 1998 when he was dismissed from his job. And
dismissed.
I don't see.
Political term for.
You got fired.
You leave or you fired.
Yeah. And especially if you got your, not your unions, but you were a city employee, so you were under the city, what's the terminology for you're not a union. You're not a at will employee.
Right. No, it was a union.
Yours was a union?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So it was. All right. So I rambled for 15 seconds about just saying it was a union. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, and that would be the situation. They're like, hey, either.
You mean the Police Officers Association?
Yeah. So you're going to resign, or we are going to do an internal investigation. We're going to fire you. We're going to take your pension, or, whatever the situation.
You're going to lose it all.
Yeah, you'll lose everything unless you resign. And I know that happens where there has been some sort of allegation or nefarious acts, and people have resigned and they get to keep everything. And hey, if that's the system, that's the system. But this guy, he resigns or is dismissed, however you want to put it. And the police go, because he was investigated or charged with a sexual assault. And interestingly enough, there's more interesting details with Bobby Henry. But interesting enough, I can't find anything that says like either he was charged with it, or he went to prison, or he wasn't charged with it, or what the situation is. Then they go and talk to him about his police gear, in which some people might say, like, why does this guy still have police gear? But especially, it's very common that in smaller departments and even larger departments, you buy a lot of your own gear.
Absolutely.
So, like, I still have, like my duty belt and one of my badges. Like, I even got to keep one of them. At this point, it is not for anything except for a memento that I get to have.
Right.
If I put it on my shirt and I walk out into the street and I start telling people, hey, yada, yada, impersonating a police officer, you go to jail.
Yeah.
But just to own those things is not against the law.
Right, because you purchased them.
Yeah, I purchased them. So duty belt, your boots, all your regular junk.
Just like in the U.S. military, most of the equipment that touches your skin, you keep.
Yeah.
Gloves, boots, socks, pants, all that stuff. Most of it, I mean, you can turn some of it in, but a lot of it you keep. In fact, I would say shockingly large amount of your gear that you use in the military, you keep.
Yeah.
So to have somebody that has these things isn't necessarily strange. It's actually easy to get.
Yeah. And in my opinion, like, I don't know why somebody would have riot gear. Like, if you were on the SWAT team and you had something like that, that's one thing, but your kit is going to look significantly different than what this man's wearing. That's why I keep saying, like, it's not SWAT gear. And also, it looks to me, even in the video footage, that it is brand new. Because, those reflective patches that he had, the one that said police on it? Well, I know that the patches that we had on our gear inside the sheriff's office, we had sheriff on the back of ours. And it's that reflective material that, it said sheriff on it. But we didn't have a one that was not scratched up or damaged in some way.
It gets subdued.
Yeah, where even when it's reflecting, you can tell that there is imperfections on it.
Yeah, because it's getting thrown around the back of your truck.
Yeah, or it's thrown in a closet or, whatever.
When you're training, you're getting scuffed up. I mean, that doesn't stay reflective for very long.
No, and this guy's stuff looked very, very clean. Like, everything looked clean. But the reason I bring that up is because Bobby Henry said that he did actually own some sort of equipment like that, but it was too small for him. And I think that the reason I pointed out that he had not been in law enforcement for 20 years was because, he said this stuff didn't fit him. And that, to me, checks out.
But it absolutely
your
does.
gear, you're 20 years out. So if, like, let's just say for me, like, I buy gear, I use it throughout my 20s. I don't use it again. And then all of a sudden you're in your late 40s or 50s, and they're like, hey, can you still put your uniform on from whenever you were 25? Probably not.
Yeah, most people are going to go ahead and fall into the rule being that you can't and the exception being that you can.
Yeah. And I'm actually glad I've lost some weight and got down to, I'm back to my like 2008 weight, which I'm pretty happy about that. But
getting back to your fighting weight?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, and then we proceed on. So we've got all of this information with Henry and Bobby Henry, and then they get to the point where they're like, okay, they still got the blinders on. It sounds like they're probably under a immense amount of pressure from the public to get something done. So they get a search warrant for Bobby, and I believe that there were 2 different search warrants that came up. But in one of the search warrants, they got all of his electronics. And to me, I was thinking that they were trying to maybe I'm sure they went through Missy's social media accounts trying to tie him back to her, or, vice versa, however that goes. I think they were trying to get that to see if there's anything on there hidden that might show communications between them that they might have missed. I don't see why you'd get the electronics for any other reason than that.
Right, is to find some type of correspondence. Yeah, I agree that
something that ties them back together.
Or maybe they thought maybe just a stalking type thing. I mean, there's a number of reasons why they seize electronics. Most importantly, to me, who doesn't use them anymore? Yeah.
Like a file folder, it's on his desktop that is just all the pictures she's
shopping
ever posted
list
on.
Where he has like large screwdriver and hammer.
Yeah, that'd be a good one.
Tactical gear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make sure and buy all these items.
Yeah, make sure to go get like a riot helmet from the military surplus store.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tactical vest to disguise yourself while committing murder.
And I know we're joking about it, but people do those things.
People have done that. Yeah, they're like,
so,
this is my outfit to disguise myself while I'm committing murder. And they're like, well, bingo, we got the guy.
Pretty cut and dry, but cool.
Yeah, but they don't find anything like that. But what they do find is child porn.
Yeah, and
which is unsettling. And that's why I think, no grace towards this guy, but you also don't need to frame him for murder, because then that's not the truth and justice system.
no, I don't think. And as we found out, he's not good for the murder as far as the evidence points. What evidence? Again, what evidence
he's got an alibi.
we do know, right?
Yeah, he's got an alibi that also checks out. That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking we're just throwing anything, throwing whatever at the wall and seeing what sticks. And for Bobby, unfortunately for him, he was being, fingered for a murder. And then it turns out, no, he is a dirtbag. He's a scumbag. He's got child porn on his computer.
Mm-hmm.
So that, to me, is a little bit of just karma. But so he's arrested. He's put in jail for 70 days.
Yeah, 70 days.
And then he's released because his alibi checks out.
Right.
Now, one of the interesting things that I found, which I kind of brought up in the first episode, is I never saw anything about him being prosecuted for the child pornography.
And I haven't either.
Yeah, and I think people might have some questions about how that might have happened.
Oh, I know I do. I would like to know how that happened, but as we mentioned before, when you're talking about the world of law enforcement, what people don't realize, what you're not going to pick up from these shows, is just how specific you have to be when you create a warrant.
Yep.
The Fourth Amendment protects you from unlawful search and seizure. And a seizure means someone taking your stuff.
Yep.
And searching, of course, means somebody entering your privacy to search for those things. That includes your person. And so we often like to think like, oh, this guy's shady. Why don't the cops just go get him?
Yeah.
Or, a lot of times in podcasts, like, you'll hear like the suspect gets pulled over, but they let him go. And they're like, why did the cops let him go? He was right there. Well, guess what, people? You have to have a reason to keep him. You can't just be like, oh, you're that dirtbag. Yeah, I got you.
You have to have probable cause.
Right. You have to have probable cause. Not suspicion, reasonable, or mere. You have to have probable cause.
Yep.
And so when they wrote these warrants, here's what only we can assume is that something wasn't done correctly, or something wasn't worded correctly, and the execution maybe wasn't done correctly, because they could say, oh, hey, that child porn you found on his computer was found under a bad warrant, so that's all fruit of the poisonous tree, which is the common term when it comes to evidence you can't use.
Yeah. Or the simple fact that they left something out, like you said, they left something out on the warrant that maybe said, because if you have a warrant that says you can search electronic devices, including and up to cell phones.
Right.
And then you find this information on a computer. And you said, well, that wasn't technically in the search warrant. And when you start talking about getting lawyers involved and things like that, they can start picking these things apart.
Easily.
And if the DA's office looks at it and goes, oh,
no,
then no.
Yeah, if
they're not going to take it.
If the DA looks at that and he goes, oh man, no, his lawyer will obliterate us, then they're going to drop that like it's on fire.
Then it's gone. And people are going to say, but wait, you had a man that had child pornography on his computer. Why can we not do anything about that?
You're right.
And we just explained it, but that is literally the kind of black and white area of search warrants. You have to be specific. If you go into someone's house believing that you're going to find drugs, you have to be specific about where you think you might be finding those drugs. Or if you think that someone has, someone is trafficking in not only narcotics, but let's just say it's weapons. And then you find something in a tiny drawer in a bathroom that a standard weapon would not fit in.
Mm-hmm.
And you would not have, it would not be reasonable for you to think to search in that spot.
Right.
But you found something else. Okay. Is that good or no good? And it's all going to be up in the air. It's all going to be up to the DA. I'm speaking about things right now where someone can go, no, I was actually a part of something, or I know someone who said this and the case went.
That's right.
Okay. Well, that's fine. I'm not saying, because we're just speaking in generalities right now, but obviously in this case, something happened.
Right. Because,
and that's what we're trying to point out.
Exactly. We know it's documented that they found child pornography, which is a felony no matter how you dice it up, on this man's computer. he did 70 days in jail while they're trying to look at him for a murder, but then he gets off because his alibi checks out, they let him go, and we're left wondering, and by we, I mean the true crime community for sure, but God knows how many other people that are close to this to any degree, they're all being like, okay, maybe he didn't kill Missy Bevers, but he had child porn.
Yeah, but he's still a scumbag.
Right. Obviously, that was implied.
Yep.
Like, so where are we on this? And you know what? I didn't find an answer.
Nowhere.
Weird.
I think,
because I feel like there's a frustrating amount of no answers.
Yeah. And, like Bobby saying that he didn't even remember that he worked Missy's funeral. And I think that is a interesting detail.
When you say he worked her funeral, let's elaborate on that. What does that entail?
He provided security at the church that Missy's funeral was held at. So he worked for a security company or something, and that's what leads me to believe that he was never convicted of anything prior to this, because he would not have been able to get a certification to be a security guard. Now, he could have. Now, churches, I know is very common. Some churches have their own security teams. And if they're talking about that specifically, well, then there's no credentials that you have to have to be on a church security team other than to show up. Now, I would hope that if anybody's listening right now that's on a security detail at church, you do a little background investigation on someone. If someone just says, hey, I used to be a cop, and they're like, slap them on the back, they're like, you're in.
Yeah.
You might want to see if he had like a sexual assault or anything like that on his record before that.
Like this guy had, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, and like I said, I'm still, I don't like this guy because of who he is, but still at the same time, he wasn't the dude. He's not the guy.
At least with what evidence is available, we can say he is not the person who murdered Missy Bevers.
Yeah. So I think that it's also kind of strange to me that several years after the murder, Brandon actually made a statement saying that he was himself no longer even looking for the killer. Like, he was going to put it all in the police's hands, which I don't know. Do we know when he said that? I don't know exactly the date, but I know it was several years.
Well, it's only been 5 years.
Yeah.
Not even whole 5 years.
Yeah, it's been 5. It happened in April.
April.
Yeah.
My bad. So yeah, it's been 5 years. And whenever we're reading this, it said that a few years ago he said that. And to me, that sounds odd. It strikes the ear as odd. It
does sound odd to me because I don't know. I'm not bashing on this police department, but I don't know did they have, in smaller towns, like I said, not bagging on anybody, but did they have the resources available to handle a crime like this? Because I did read that they had the help of the FBI. So that kind of makes me think that any loose ends with the evidence that they had would have been tied up with the inclusion of the FBI.
You would think that.
But to me, it's very crucial in the very beginning steps, because you don't know anything is evidence until you know it's evidence.
True. That's why they collect everything.
Everything.
You're collecting everything and you're ruling it out.
Yeah.
You're not ruling things in.
Yeah.
It's all in.
Yeah, it's all in. So if we had a forensic kind of a crime scene unit or something like that was not as adequate as some of the others or in the surrounding areas, if that information is missed and then that crime scene is cleaned, then it's gone forever.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't know, and that's the thing. The police chief even said himself that in the 8 years he had been with that particular department, there had not even been a murder in the town.
Mm-hmm.
So no one's fresh on that. I mean, you got your trainings and such, but that's not gonna, it doesn't keep you in the business.
No, it's nothing compared to like real world experience when it comes to investigating crimes like this, which, it does make me wonder, is, like you said, is this a reason why we don't know as much, that they're choosing to keep it closer to the vest because they think it's the right thing to do, but really we're all sitting around wondering what the heck happened, because as far as unsolved murder cases go, there is a frustrating lack of available evidence for anyone to even look at, or any leads at all, or any bolos.
Yeah.
So at one time, if you look into this case, it talks about the 2010 to 2012 silver Nissan Altima, or a 2010 to 2012 Silver Infiniti G37 acting suspicious, but it's not damning evidence.
Yeah.
They're down the street at that sporting goods store, kind of driving around, blacking out their lights, kind of moving around. Again, highly suspicious.
Yeah,
I guarantee
because of the time.
Right. I guarantee any beat cop, especially if I was to drive by a business and see a car darked out driving around that wasn't another law enforcement car, I'm definitely hitting that sucker with a Code 54.
I'm Code 54 in that all day.
All day.
Yeah.
Easy peasy.
Yep.
No one's going to question you. Why'd you stop this dude? He was blacked out driving around a parking lot of a sporting goods store. They're like, oh.
At 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, definitely is.
Like,
you're definitely going to
okay.
assume right out the gate that's suspicious. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's the only time we see it. Now, if you look, that sporting goods store, it's not like a great distance, but it's down the street.
Yeah.
So
is it across the highway too? Was it across?
I don't remember if it was across or if it was down the highway.
Either way, it's one of those situations where it like, as we're looking at it, we're saying, okay, could this be something? Yes, like we talked about with collecting evidence. You want to look at every single thing that you have available to you. But at the end, is it something that can be used, or if it's something that has to be discarded? And in this case, it looks like it was discarded, because they also talked about I just looked it up while you were talking. So yeah, it is down the street, down the highway, and across the highway. So what highway is that? 287. Oh, wow.
Weird.
Yeah, that is weird.
Yeah, weird. You know where 287 intersects? Just down the street here.
Yeah, just right down the street from where we're at.
Yeah, in Amarillo. But yeah, so it's cruising around. Now, again, highly suspicious, but there's no outdoor cameras that see it pulling up to the church.
Yep.
So even if we were to assume somebody could park there or nearby and walk to that church, it's not a great distance.
No, but it would definitely seem like it would take a second. So if they saw the car at 2:30-ish, say 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, that would give him enough time to get down there. And if you don't know, and also I would check out with people that were walking down the highway during the middle of the night. When I worked when I was on patrol, if I saw someone walking down the median or down the side of the road, I would stop and see, like, hey, what are you doing out here? Why are you walking on the highway? Because are they up to something, or did they have a disabled vehicle somewhere and they need help?
Yeah, very suspicious, but not always in a bad way.
Yeah.
Like, it's suspicious that you're walking down the highway. Yeah, it is. The reason why? Oh, my car broke down. Oh, okay.
Yep.
So you need help.
Yeah, that closes that off right there.
Exactly.
They also talked about another SUV that was seen that could have matched something that Bobby had. But I think at this point we can all assume that it turns out that they brought all of that evidence forward, but it takes you nowhere.
Right. Every time you get a little nugget and you're like, oh, well, what about this? Leads to nowhere.
Fool's gold.
Which brings me back to what I said earlier in the episode. We often talk about, what if somebody executes the perfect murder? Did it happen here? Because there's no suspect that fits. There's no evidence left behind that we know about.
Yeah.
And if it is a perfect murder, is it because of circumstance or because of execution?
Yeah.
Which are huge questions. And people like to often disregard just how powerful something like circumstance is.
Yeah.
Circumstance is like luck.
Yeah. Did this guy win the lottery on the night that he also committed
Exactly.
the murder? And he got away scot-free.
Exactly. It could be for any number of reasons. Circumstance is truck and a trailer driving down your road and spilling a bunch of roofing nails, and they all land so that when you run them over, they don't pop your tire. That's circumstance.
Yeah.
You can also describe it as luck, or you have the opposite side of that coin. Circumstance is you do pop your tire. They land in a way that it does end up popping your tire. That's the way I always looked at how circumstance works. And that might be something that happened here. Did this person come there to just trash a church and run into Missy Bevers by circumstance? To him, or to this perpetrator, that's circumstance. To her, she's planning to be there.
Yep.
And that he killed her out of fear, or did he go there on purpose to kill her?
Yeah.
And because of the circumstances of his escape, he made it.
Yeah.
And somewhere out there, what I do believe 100% in my core zone of core zones, somebody knows who did this.
Yeah.
Somebody knows what they've done. And for God's sakes, give us the rest of the evidence.
Yeah. Because it's either the perfect crime, faulty police work, or a good old boy system.
Oh, Lord, please don't let it be that third one.
Yeah. Where they know something happened, but because someone's brother's cousin is, and they're like, well, she was screwing around on him, or, I mean, think of all the different scenarios that can kind of go in with
Lord.
that.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. That's, to me, I think like something that we can end on if you want.
Yeah.
Do you think it was a perfect crime? Do you think that it was a setup? I mean, let me rephrase that.
Mm-hmm.
Was it happens chance or was it intentional in your mind?
I believe that whoever this person was showed up at the Creekside Church to kill or confront in some way, ready to use violence, Missy Bevers. The fact that he broke in, bebopped around, broke some glass, kind of pilfered around, but never took anything, and then ended up killing her, I think that isn't by circumstance. I think that whoever this is went there to do that.
It was intentional.
It's very intentional. There's too many coincidences. That night, that time, he was already there. She didn't see anyone else there. I don't know exactly what her protocol was with showing up, like maybe circling the church to make sure nobody else is there before she went in.
Yeah.
Or did she just pull up and head in? I also don't know that.
Oh, and forgot about this. She had a firearm in her vehicle.
Okay. So she seems like a careful person.
Yeah. And that's kind of where I forgot about that. And I also agree with you. I feel like this is intentional because of a lot of things that you pointed out and some stuff that we've already talked about. But even though Missy had received threats previous to this, and she was putting all of her information out on social media, and she had this firearm in her car, she did not feel like she was under enough distress to keep it with her.
That's right. And she went into that church to get ready to start her day.
Duress.
Right.
Yeah.
To start her day. And then somebody came in and killed her.
Yeah.
And any other evidence about what happened in there, we don't know, unfortunately. Like, get with the program and just let us know.
Yeah.
Because did she fight back? Did she not? What did he, we don't know from the witnesses who found her whether there was music playing. So did he sneak up on her or did he charge in there to get her on purpose? But to answer your question, in my opinion, this is not a crime of opportunity. This happened on purpose. That whoever this person is was there for her. That's how I feel.
Yeah, I do too. 100%. That's I fall in the same category. And if anybody out there has any ideas or information or anything like that, like I said, always just reach out to us either by the email, which I'll give all that spill here in a minute, or on the social medias, because we enjoy talking to people that share similar passions, and we can all kind of come together on this story because we're all kind of doing it at the same time.
Absolutely. And we both work, but man, if you leave us a message, we'll get back to you as soon as we can.
Yeah.
And more than likely it'll be both of us.
Yeah. Yeah, we both see the messages that come across, so we'll hit you back and
we'd love to.
And talk to you. So I think for now we are going to leave it there, and we'll see you guys next time. Goodbye. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening. I can't explain to you how much the progress of the podcast picking up and getting new listeners in different towns, cities, countries. It's really, really cool. We appreciate it. So if you want to hit us up on any of the social medias, we are on Facebook at The Murder Project. If you need to search us, we're at facebook.com/podcasttmp. If you're looking for us on Instagram, we're at The Murder Project. And if you're looking for us on Twitter, we're at The Murder Pod. Also, don't forget that if you're listening to this on Apple, to go ahead and give us that 5-star review.
5 stars.
If you could. We would really appreciate it. And write us a review. I would actually like to read a couple of those maybe on the next episode that we do, just to kind of give a shout out to everybody that has dropped a review for us. We'd really appreciate that. And also, like I say, if you have a question for us and maybe you want to do it in a long format, We have an email that's contact@themurderproject.com. Don't forget, if you're listening on any other platforms that are you're able to give it a thumbs up or a like or subscribe to it, make sure and smash all those buttons so we can get past the algorithm. We appreciate you guys so much. We look forward to talking to you guys again soon. But before we go, remember,
head up, eyes up,
and stay alive.